Hello everybody, my name is Advay. Sure. So today we have with us an Indian American aerospace engineer, Dr. Swati Mohan.
You want to call on the stage?
A slide?
Okay, so we dedicated a few slides about Dr. Swati Mohan. We just wanted to talk a little bit about her and kind of go through some quizzes so you guys can have a chance to raise your hands and show your knowledge. So first, we wanted to appreciate Dr. Swati Mohan. She received her BS from Cornell University and her MS and PhD from MIT in aerospace engineering with a focus on guidance, navigation, and controls. And she was born in India in 1983, and she currently works at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and she has worked on many missions such as the Mars 2020, Perseverance, Psyche, and Grail.
So one of the quotes that she stated is, sometimes it means to take the initiative to do things, even if there's nobody asking for it, because you never know what it may lead to. So this is a quiz.
So our first question for you guys is, does anyone here know what the full form of NASA is?
That one.
Good job! How old are you? 8 years old? You're so young. Okay, so as you can see, you're correct. That's very impressive that you knew the full form at such a young age. Are you interested in space? Okay, that's good. So our next question is, what was one of the missions that Dr. Swati Mohan worked on? And I mentioned this.
Over there.
Perseverance. Perseverance.
And that is correct. Next slide. What is NASA's main purpose?
So this answer, you could say many things for this answer, so say what you think is best.
One minute, please.
To launch rockets and satellites and to learn more about space.
Wow,
That's
good
good
job.
job. Does anyone else want to add on to that answer?
Well, I know like one thing like NASA was made, like it was made during the space race. It was a race between like Russia and America to see like who can build rockets and explore space more faster. It was more of an informational war, not the like war with guns and like bombs.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. That takes us back into history and kind of how NASA became what it is today. So our answer could be anything. We put explores the unknown in air and space, aeronautics research, and pioneers the future of space exploration.
Okay, what is the name of our galaxy? That one over there, you can try. Oh. Anyone's looking right now.
My answer is the Milky Way.
Oh, good job. So that answer is correct, and then you put a little fun fact that there is an estimated 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. Isn't that a lot? Crazy, guys.
Wow.
Wow. And there's a picture from Milky Way.
So what is liquid changing into a gas called, and why does it happen? Tony?
A liquid changing into a gas is called evaporation, and it happens because more heat is added to the particles, which creates more space so that if particles spread out, it becomes gas.
Yes, good job. That was a trick question. Okay, yeah, so we put evaporation as well, and then our answer is that the molecules with the highest kinetic energy escape from the surface, taking heat away and lowering the temperature.
Good job. Nice. What is the largest planet in our solar system?
Well, there's a lot of names to choose from.
Will we go someone from the back over there? Yeah. It's Jupiter. Oh, good job.
That's a picture of our Jupiter. Pretty interesting. It's a different color than Earth. It's brown. Okay, I think that's the last slide.
The quiz. So thank you guys so much for participating.
And if you now know a little bit more of our solar system and about Dr. Swati Mohan. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Dr. Swati Mohan, you come up, and then do you have to come forward?
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first visit to the Livermore Temple. I've never been here before, so thank you for this warm welcome. I'm going to give just a little bit of advice and maybe a little bit more detail about my background, and I would love to open it up mostly to questions that I can answer from you guys in the audience. So just a little bit more background about me, although I think it's been did a great job introducing. Next slide. And I write this as who I choose to be, as not just the facts about my background, but what I personally identify as. So we hit the next, there's a lot of animations in this slide, so just be careful. I'm a guidance, navigation, and controls operations lead for NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory for Mars 2020. We're actually almost exactly 5 years from Perseverance's landing day. It was 5 years as of the 18th, Wednesday the 18th. That's a lot of words to say that I'm basically a rocket scientist. That's what my degree was in. I don't actually work on rockets, although I could. I like working on the things that go in them, that actually explore the solar system. And how I got to being here is a self-proclaimed space nerd, not just about the facts of space and learning about it, but really anything that has to do with space, including science fiction and Star Trek and Star Wars and Interstellar and all the different space movies that imagine our life in the future where we actually get to be out in space. I am an engineer. What I take that to be is, in learning about myself, I figured out that I liked to build things. It wasn't enough for me to just search for the answer why. I liked to be hands-on and actually build things and feel like I contributed to making something that did something. That's by definition an engineer. An engineer uses the principles of math and science to solve a practical problem. I'm Indian American. I was born in India, and I emigrated to this country when I was 1 year old. So I've grown up entirely here, and I will say that when I was growing up, the Indian community here was way smaller than it is right now. So even seeing that difference between how I grew up and how my children can grow up is very different. So when I mentioned this as an Indian American, it was a choice, because when we immigrated here in '83, you had to really work hard to keep that part of the Indian culture alive, because there was very few other Indian kids at school, very other sparse families, and the communities were not nearly as big as they are now. So keeping that part of culture alive was a conscious choice. But if we hadn't worked hard towards it, it would have evaporated just by osmosis. I am a wife and a mother. I have 2 daughters. Their ages 10 and 14, so kind of in this age range. My husband was also an Indian American. He was born in the US, grew up here, and he has 2 physician parents, and he himself is a physician. So we're dual workers with raising 2 kids in Los Angeles. That's it. We should go to the next one. So in looking back on my journey, there's 3 big takeaways that I have with the benefit of hindsight and what I think helped me get to where I am today. The first one is knowing and accepting who I am, both the good parts and the bad parts, and being honest about what that means of who I am as a person. The second one, click next, having a really good support system that was able to mentor and support and provide that guidance throughout the years in various different forms that allowed me to keep pushing on the journey. And then the last one is to actively do your best. I'll get to this in a little bit, but I think the quote that I mentioned came from me explaining this 3rd bullet. I don't exactly remember when I said it, but I'm almost positive it came from this presentation explaining that 3rd bullet. So going into the first one, we're going to hit the next slide. There's a lot of animations on this, sorry. So how did I get to the little kid there? I think I'm 8 years old in that picture, to where I am at JPL. So if you hit the next slide, when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor. I think somebody asked me when I was 5 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? And even at that point, as a little Indian kid growing up in this country, I had internalized that there were only 2 right answers to that question. Can anyone guess what those right answers were? Doctor or engineer, exactly. So at age 5, I did not know really what an engineer did. So I'm like, well, I can't say that I want to be something that I don't know. So I'm going to pick a doctor. I know what a pediatrician does. I go to the pediatrician, they make me feel better. So someone asked me at age 5, some uncle, and I said, I want to be a pediatrician at age 5. So I said it, and that was it, right? That was my goal. That's what I told people. That was my career for the rest of my life. Okay. That's what I had. Around that time of that picture taken when I was 8, maybe 10 years old, I saw my first Star Trek: The Next Generation episode. How many of you in here are Trekkies? That's a really small number than I'm used to. How many of you are Star Wars fans? Yo. That's a lot more. Anyway, Star Trek, this was The Next Generation, and the first episode I saw was an episode, it was one of the Traveler episodes. And the main character in that particular episode was like a 13-year-old kid, and he ends up saving the day because he knows more than the adults. So as a kid watching this, I thought that was pretty cool that the kid was the one who knew more than everybody else, including the adults. And then 2, the images, the concept of that episode was that the Enterprise gets shot into space. It's in a completely different part of the universe, and the laws of physics don't apply in this part of the universe. So the idea that there are places that were super beautiful, because it kind of looked like that when they did the artist rendering. They were super beautiful that we fundamentally knew nothing about was just baffling to me, and like really piqued my interest about what space was, and I wanted to learn more about it. I asked what Star Trek was, and my dad's like, oh, it's set in the 24th century, and it's completely fictional, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll learn about space, but it's just for fun. Of course, because I already said I was going to be a doctor, and I couldn't veer away from that. So fast forward to junior year of high school, I take my first physics class. Up until now, I'm firmly on the medical route. I volunteered at the hospital. I took anatomy and physiology. I was debating between taking AP biology. As junior year in physics, I took my first physics class. And for the first time, that was like, oh, this is what it can mean to be an engineer. And for me, it made me realize how much better I was at physics than I was at biology. Like, it was a struggle for me to memorize. Like, it took a lot of effort to go through, memorize all the parts of the cell, understand what they made. The dissections in bio class, I was not good at dissections. I had to make sure that I didn't like have to exit the room from feeling queasy. Then I get to physics, and the teacher on the first day, he's like, that's what we're gonna learn today, F equals MA. That's what you need to know the entire year. You know F equals MA, everything else this year is just application of F equals MA. That's great. 3 letters, I can remember that. And then I realized it doesn't matter if you know the letters, because that doesn't help you actually if you don't understand how to apply them. And that kind of led to, oh, this is kind of interesting. Engineering is actually using this equation to build things, to make things move the way you want to get it to do stuff. That's pretty cool. So then that summer, if you hit the next button, I finally managed to convince my parents to send me to space camp. Has anyone been to space camp here? No. It was the single best camp I had ever done. It was so much fun and set up as a play that like you didn't even feel like it was educational, but it was absurdly educational. You actually got like 2 credits of college credits for that week because you actually did attend lectures and stuff. But what space camp gave me, aside from the fun stuff, and it was with a bunch of other space nerds that I really resonated with, it was the first time that I connected the physics to an actual practical job that one could do. So we look at, I mean, watching Star Trek does not give you a practical job that you can aspire to. Astronauts, yes, that is a job, but like the smallest fraction of people get to actually do that. Went to space camp, and I sat in mission control in one of the demonstrations, and I put the headset on. I was like, oh, this is a job. This is the job that I could do, because there's a procedure, you have to understand the procedure, you have to tell them what to do and be super organized about it and understand the engineering like that. That's something I can do. And there are a lot of people who work in mission control. That was the first light bulb moment of maybe there's something here. That same summer I went, can you hit the next slide? I had an internship at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Now the internship itself was really boring. It was like taking paper drawings and converting them into CAD. So they like hold us in a conference room in front of a computer and gave us a big binder and said, okay, don't come out until you finish with all these documents. But the other interns and I happened to be passing by the cafeteria on our lunch break, and there was a poster for a model rocket competition. So we took it back to our advisor and said, we want to do this instead. And that was my first experience actually building a rocket. And that hands-on of, I built something, we went out and tested it, it actually worked, got off the ground. That was super exciting. That was like the aha of like, I can build something. That's something that goes into space. This is a career that's in space. There's something here enough worth pursuing. And I happen to be good at engineering stuff, so I'm gonna switch. This was 3 months before I had to put my college applications in. So I told my parents, okay, I'm ditching the whole medicine thing. I'm gonna be an engineer instead. Luckily it was one of the 2, doctor engineer, so there wasn't that much drama at home. So then I went about researching all the places that I could go for aerospace engineering. I didn't know what it meant, but any department that had aerospace in the name, I applied to. I ended up going to Cornell University for 2 main reasons. One, at the time, Cornell University had a big partnership with NASA JPL. This was around 2000, 2003, so the professor at Cornell, Steve Squires, was actively working on the Spirit and Opportunity rovers that landed on Mars. So he had a big team at Cornell with the students who were actually helping work on that. And then from the space science point of view, Cornell helped run the Arecibo Observatory, which this is a picture of, which was one of the radio astronomy telescopes that actually looks for life out the solar system. Unfortunately, it broke from hurricanes just a couple of years ago, so it's not active anymore. But it was a large portion of where our data came from for many, many years. Went to Cornell and then proceeded to try to figure out where my place was in this big field of aerospace. Go to the next slide. So I ended up getting my bachelor's in 2004, but in those 4 years, I tried a bunch of stuff. So I had an undergraduate research project on building a satellite, an attitude control system for a satellite. So that's what I worked on while I was in school. And then the first summer, I had an internship at Kennedy Space Center. This one was a space biology internship, because at that point I was like, well, I wanted to be a doctor for so long, but I want to do space stuff, so maybe space biology is the best of both worlds, because that's, it has both of those in it. I very quickly realized that was not for me. Horrible idea, but it was very fun to be at Kennedy Space Center. The year after, I worked at Caltech in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in a group called Team X, which dreams up missions to go places in the solar system. So that summer, I designed 2 missions to go to Uranus and to Neptune, and figured out how the trajectories would work to get there, which I thought was super cool. This is what it felt like to be on the bridge of the Enterprise. I was literally charting the course to get to the outer planets. That was super great. This was still all in undergrad, and then the following year I said, okay, this was super great, so I'm going to go back. Go back to JPL. This time I worked with Nathan Bridges and Matt Gollenbeck, and did a whole bunch of classification that has now been replaced by AI. But back then, it was interns that did this work. Has anyone heard of recurring slope lineae, RSLs on Mars? You heard? So these little streaks here, these black streaks, I don't know if you can see them, those are called RSL. My job that summer was to go through hundreds of pictures, taken orbital imagery, and by hand count the number of streaks, count the number of pixels, tall and wide, and make a big spreadsheet that had all that information. Super boring work, made me hate Mars for many, many years, which is ironic because I am now known for working on Mars. But that data collected over many years was the prime result of being able to prove that there was liquid water on Mars. So, not the most exciting internship, but eventually, 15 years later, was very instrumental in helping prove that. So, in looking at all of these different options, I'm like, okay, what did I like the best? I liked the exploration part of this, but in the hands, I did not like this, and I did not like that on the science side, so I was firmly out of anything science related. I'm like, help them, but I don't want to do it myself. So I decided that I liked what I did at the university of actually building the satellite and getting it to move the way I wanted it to. So I ended up going to graduate school in that particular area, in navigation control, and the satellites that I got to work with this time were on the International Space Station. So these are the Sphere satellites that I got to do for my PhD thesis, where I worked on autonomous assembly using these satellites on Mars. So got my PhD in 2010, decided to go back to JPL, mostly because my husband and I got jobs at the same time. It was super convenient to go back to JPL to be able to pitch that. If you go to the next slide. Worked on a whole bunch of things when I got to JPL. I actually took a year break between grad school and undergrad, and that was the year that Cassini actually got to Saturn. So I worked on Cassini right when I got to Saturn and let out the probe release. I was the lowest of lowly peons on that project, having only been there for a couple of months, but it was amazing to be a fly on the wall to see how that type of critical activity actually happened. The next one is Grail, which was the first mission to be information, to spacecraft information around a body that was not Earth. After that was Optiques, which got canceled, unfortunately, but is one of my favorites because it was basically my PhD thesis come to life, even if it didn't get even if it got canceled. That got reformed into OCO3, which is an orbiting carbon observatory. There was a question, I think one of the questions was, why do we spend money on NASA, given that we could be doing other things like climate change or helping the world? A lot of NASA's missions, especially things like OCO3, is about collecting data to better the world that we live in. So in order to do things like solve climate change or to help crop rotations, you need the information about what the temperatures are, where the weather is, where the carbon is going, so that you can identify the hotspots to minimize the techniques in there. Without these type of observatories, you don't have that data, in order to make policy decisions or real-time decisions or help farmers with their crop rotations as they're doing it. So the whole Earth Science Department at NASA is about using technology in space to better humanity on Earth through different means. And then the last one here, I haven't updated this since landing day, is Mars 2020. Mars 2020, I joined when I was still very early at JPL. I'd only been there for 3 years after after graduating, and I was on Mars 2020 for 8 years, from when it was basically like a paper, land on Mars in 2020 that they told us in 2013, to actually being there in 2021. So it's the single longest thing I've worked on, even from undergrad to grad school, to any of these other projects. It's the single longest one that I've worked on, to see it from what we call cradle to grave, like the entire life cycle of a mission. If you go to the next one. So what this ended up being to get to where I am now, I realized that I was much better at applying things than to memorize, and the building things as opposed to the science aspect of it, whether it's biology or geology or astronomy. I like much more to build things to help scientists than to do the science myself. And the passion was the space exploration. It wasn't, for me, it's not human space flight, it's not GPS satellites to help here, it's building things to go out to new areas of our solar system to learn new things about our world. And then I like to see how the big picture works. Why are we doing the mission that we're doing, and how does that flow into how we design it? Because that's kind of the using the path to make decisions at each point of what I did like, what I didn't like, what I was good at, to then find the next opportunity and keep going one step at a time. I did not have the end goal in mind. It was definitely a learning process as I did it, but what helped was to have that evaluation, whether it was conscious or unconscious, at every step, to actually be honest about what I liked and what I was good at. So the next one is creating your support system. Give a big shout out to my parents. They were always super supportive of anything that I wanted to do, and definitely helped push me in being the best that I could be and really aiming hard. I will also say that I had great friends, especially in undergrad and grad. Like I said, when I was growing up, the Indian community where I lived was not very big, so I did not have a lot of friends. When I got to undergrad, that was the first time I actually found other Indian Americans like myself who had similar upbringing, and being able to bond with them both from a cultural standpoint and from a cultural standpoint, a religious standpoint, and an academic standpoint was really eye-opening. It was the first time that I could experience all of those in one place, and helped me be open to embracing all aspects of that. In grad school, I put this picture up because even in my field, even today, there's still very few women in my subspecialty, because guidance and navigation control is very math-based. You don't even start learning it until third year of undergrad, and really to understand it, you have to go to grad school, and to do any of the actual coursework, it's usually a PhD or beyond. Grad school was the first time that, through a confluence of happenstance, there was actually a critical mass of us graduate students that were all female at the same time in my particular lab. And that was the first time that I had experienced it from high school to undergrad, only in grad school. In high school, I was one of 3 out of like a class of 30 where the rest were guys, and in undergrad, it was like 10 of us females in a class of 110 in a mechanical engineering class. And in grad school, it was finally a little bit more balanced, and it kind of helped me change my mentality of what it meant to be in an equal balanced lab. My husband on the right there is super supportive and is critically necessary. He is at home watching the kids that they got sick, and he had to stay home from work in order to watch them, so I could come and give this talk here. And it helped that he had 2 working parents. His mom is also a physician, so understood what that meant in terms of wanting to have a professional life and a career-driven life. And then this last picture is my work family. This is the Mars 2020 Enter Descent Landing team. We took this in Halloween, I think, some year, and you can see we're all dressed up well, except for me, apparently I was being very boring that day. But it kind of shows how comfortable we were with one another in order to be able to do it. And there was a camaraderie of that team and a respect that really translated into how we worked together, so it made it more than the sum of its parts. Like, how we worked together kind of was even better than how we individually worked, because we were always there to support each other. I think I said all of these, and then if you go to the next one, so to actively do your best. I talked a little bit about the Goddard Model Rocket Contest. When I say actively do your best, I'm sure most of you say like, oh, you have to do your best, you have to get straight A's, you have to study hard. And that's all true, and you can use Google a lot to find the opportunities to apply for them, and it's great when you get them, disappointing when you don't, but not all opportunities are marked or labeled, and sometimes we get more out of the opportunities that we create for ourselves than those that are open and the doors that we already know that are marked. For this one, it wasn't presented to us. Nobody asked us if we wanted to do it. We saw the flyer. We decided that there was something we wanted to do. The ask to the advisor that year was like, can we use the conference room for an hour after we finish our internship every day just so we can plan? It was a small ask. We were just asking for like a little time to use the computers. But he got so excited that we had asked that it suddenly turned into a big thing where he helped us design the rocket. He took us to the hobby store to buy the parts. He found where we could go to test it and what it took to actually test the rocket. Without that, we wouldn't have been able to do nearly as much. And having that support simply because we asked is what created that opportunity. And from that opportunity, I decided that I liked that and then pursued the next step. So that small impetus of thinking about something and being willing to take that step to ask for something and not being afraid if the answer is no really opens up the potential to do a lot. And that kind of pattern repeats. So this is a picture of me at my very first conference when I was an undergrad. I asked my professor, or my mentor at the time, if I could write a paper. I think I was just a freshman or a sophomore, and he looked at me like, okay, if you want to, because he had never been used to having undergrads write a paper wanting to present a poster. And it probably wasn't the best, paper, but it got selected, and it was an opportunity to go to the conference. And even if it didn't win any awards, or it didn't, expand my resume too much, but it was an opportunity for me in a very low stakes environment to go through the process of writing a paper, to make the poster, to know what it felt like standing up there. This particular one was in the space biology one, so it's not even a field that I was going into eventually. I'd already decided against it. But because I had that opportunity, and I knew what a conference looked like, what it meant to go, how the logistics worked out, when I did have to do it for my own research that was important to me, I had already had that trial run. And so it helped me give the confidence of, okay, I know how to do this, I kind of know the lay of the land, and this is what I need to get done. Helped me be much more prepared for when the opportunity actually mattered to me. The next one. So Zero Robotics, has anybody heard of Zero Robotics? I know there are a lot of teams in the Bay Area. No? Zero Robotics is a coding challenge camp where you go through different levels of competitive coding to do a particular game. It's sort of like First Robotics, but there's no hardware involved. It's just a software-based game. But the finale is that your code runs on little robots inside the International Space Station. So when I was a grad student, as part of my job, I was lucky enough to go to Houston to train the astronauts. One of the astronauts happened to be also a controls engineer, and he was like, well, you guys, as grad students, get to put your code on these satellites. Wouldn't it be great if we could open it up to high school students also? I'm like, that would be great, but how are we supposed to do that? And he was like, I don't know, figure it out. Just have it ready in time so when I'm on the International Space Station, we can try it out. So I'm like, oh, okay. So my last year at grad school, we did a pilot program with just 2 high schools to say, like, can we even do this? Like, what information do we need to give to the students? How do we build the infrastructure? It was actually a resounding success. We just had two schools, but the students loved it. So after the next year, there was like 10 schools, and the next year there was 50 schools. Now it's been going for 15 years, and something like, I don't know, more than 20 countries and over 180 schools. There's even a movie out that was at the like Sundance Film Festival or something, of a Bay Area school that competed in this. If you want to check it out. All of this came from one conversation over Mexican food and nachos of like, wouldn't it be cool to do this? At JPL, there was a time in early 2010 where JPL was trying to get into small satellites, CubeSats, but they'd never done it before, they didn't know how to do it, whereas me and one of my other colleagues, we had just come from the university setting where we did this as part of our road. So we're like, well, there's infrastructure here that JPL needs to build that they haven't built. What if we built that infrastructure at JPL, and we could do it for much cheaper? So we pitched this, almost like a small company within JPL. We pitched this to the CFO of JPL after getting through like 15 different people up until that level and doing consensus, and finally got enough funding to start that lab, get it enough infrastructure to get that going, and now it's been, again, like 12 years or so, 13 years of managing that lab at JPL on my off time with my real work, and we've been able to test a lot of JPL's CubeSats through that lab and give them the green light before they launched, and do a lot of R&D projects. And it came solely out of our conversations and seeing a need and filling that need for JPL. So the act of we do your best has to do with not just doing well in the opportunities that are visible, but actually creating the opportunities around you. In order to do this, there's some amount of research, there's networking, and there's taking initiative as part of that to figure out what you can do or ask to create the different opportunities. And then finally, when you do have the opportunities, whether it goes smoothly or not smoothly, using each opportunity to learn about yourself, what you did like, what you didn't like, and decide the next step based on that opportunity is what will help you chart the path that's right for you, not just assume what your path needs to look like because someone else had a similar goal and was walking a similar path to you. Yep, so this is my 3 lessons learned. You can give these charts if you want, but know who you are, accept who you are, create your own support system. It's super important to keep your perseverance through all this, and then actively do your best to understand what you want to do, to ask, and to not be afraid of failing at things or getting no's for rejection. You go to the next slide. I think this is basically the same. And then the last one, this is, don't give up. The path is not always straight. It takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of effort, and hard work, and sleepless nights sometimes. But there is value in keeping the path. I worked for 8 years for 8 minutes on a single day to see that go successfully. And then 5 years from now, people still talk about that 8 minutes, 7 minutes chair. That's my little spiel. I'm happy to answer questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
My name is Shimuka, and what was your favorite subject when you were my age? By the way, I am 10 years old.
I'm 10 years old. What was my favorite subject when I was 10 years old? Gymnastics? I was really into gymnastics at that time.
Oh, Okay, nice.
My name's Ayansh. I'm 10 years old. So like, what can you do from like ages 8 to 10 to like, while doing all of this, like what can you do in that time period?
So I would say from ages 8 to 10, I say really at that point you should be curious and try to learn as much as you can about things that interest you. And that could look a lot of different ways. For me, it looked like going to the library and checking out, there was a space corner of our library, and I would just check out the books in order, like whatever I hadn't read, and I would just read about the different planets and the different solar systems. For others, it might look different nowadays. For my daughter, it looks like she likes going to Code Ninjas and doing different activities where she gets to play with a 3D printer and do coding. So it's about staying curious, and then if something interests you, like try to learn more about it, whether it's through reading or through asking people or watching videos on it or something. Really try to pull on that curiosity to learn what it is that you can and find about more things that interest you and pull on that thread so that you can take it to the next level.
Okay.
My name is Saket. I'm 17 years old, and in pursuing aerospace engineering, if you want to pursue aerospace engineering and do that in the future, does it make a significant difference if you study aerospace or mechanical engineering at an undergraduate or graduate level? Like, how much does that affect your future career if you want to still go into aerospace?
Yeah, I would say that is entirely a personality-driven thing of what inspires you. So aerospace engineering is what I call an application type of engineering, where it combines different elements from like the foundational type of engineering, electrical, mechanical, civil, thermal engineering, chemical engineering. It takes all the different aspects of that and applies it into the space field. So there are elements in aerospace engineering that cover all of those different disciplines. So whether you want to do the discipline first or you want to do aerospace engineering, the application is more driven by what motivates you as a student to learn that subject than it is of what is best for you, because you can do either, and I don't think there's any pros or cons to get a job of whether you did like electrical or mechanical and then went into aerospace, or if you did aerospace and then went into mechanical, because the base knowledge is the same. You might get a little bit more specialized examples that are in space versus in like automotive cases or things like that if you were just a regular mechanical engineer, but the fundamentals are the same. So if it motivates you more because the space application is what excites you and not the fundamental physics, and you do aerospace engineering. But if you don't know yet that space is the only thing that you want to work on and you're still exploring options, I would do a fundamental thing first. Fundamental engineering, whether electrical, mechanical, chemical.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for your speech. I was truly inspired by it. I'm Ria, I'm 17 years old. I'm also an aspiring aerospace major. And my question is, with the AI boom happening, my question is, what kind of opportunities do you see being created in the job market with the intersection of aerospace and AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have two answers to this. One, I guess I would say I get a little triggered when they say AI for space applications, because people use AI as a hammer that they're just trying to bash everything with and trying to find everything as a nail to bash it with. Autonomy in general has multiple different applications, especially in aerospace, driven by the fact that in space, the farther out we go, the less communication we have with the elements. So more has to be autonomous in order to keep the spacecraft safe, in order for it to keep operating and to do the kind of science that it wants to do. The more autonomy that you can implement, the cheaper it can be, the less people you need on the ground to design it or to operate it, which then you can layer to have fleets of spacecraft that can then perform different functions. So there is a real use case for autonomy and layering autonomy and getting spacecraft more capable in that sense. the big boom on AI and aerospace, when I look at the future of where I think the industry is going, the use of AI, I think, will be an incremental benefit for efficiency from where we are right now. But if we really want to take the next leap into like a new generation of technology, that's not just making what we already know how to do better or faster. It will need to go down to the fundamentals of the physics that we know how to design, and AI is not good at doing that.
Great, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Nikhil and I'm 17. I also applied for aerospace engineering. So my quick question for you is like, I actually filed a provisional patent for basically a swarm coordination network. It's for drones, but it could also be like easily applied to like spacecraft, satellites, anything pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what opportunities are there for me to take that to like the next level, basically?
To take formation flying of swarms into space?
Not necessarily into space, but like, is there any opportunities or anything like grants or anything that like NASA gives out, and like anything that you know about?
Are you in high school or are you in college right now?
I'm in high school, but I'm going to college in like a couple of months.
So there, I don't know of any for high school. In college, there are grants that you can apply for, and the vehicles, though, are not really for individuals so much. So there's, well, how do we phrase that? There's a couple of different avenues, and it depends on who you want to collaborate with to write the proposal. So there's company-based things like small business research grants that NASA does, that they have an interest in a certain type of technology. Swarm technology is one of them. Whether it's NASA or Space Force, they do have interest in funding those. Some of those will go to small companies, like they write a proposal that does a particular technology that they would apply to it. The second is university grants, so professors who work in that area, especially if you are applying to college, I would research the different universities and find specific professors who are already working in swarm technologies or formation flying, because they probably already have grants through that do that. And that would be the easiest, I would say. Find a professor who already has grants to do that, and then you can go in and pitch them your particular idea and see how it can fit. So even if you have to do a little bit that meets their grant, then it's kind of like 50%, and then you can do your part on the side. The third way would be to, this would be more for graduate school, I think, than for undergraduate school, but graduate fellowships, whether it's the NDSEG, which is the National Defense Space Education Grant, I think, or there's a NASA Space Grant Fellowship. That has a research component to it, and then you write a research proposal, you find a mentor at a NASA center that supports that research, and then you get to do internships, and basically it gives you funding for your graduate education to do that research. So if you have a topic and you work with a professor, work with a NASA mentor, you apply for the grant, and then you kind of can own your own research idea. More for the graduate level, I don't know how they do it for the undergraduate level, but then the last method would be finding an internship at a particular NASA site that's doing something similar.
And one more question is that, like, is there any like opportunities or like tools that NASA or like any other companies offer? Because I searched online and there was like a couple from like Microsoft and like Lockheed Martin, but nothing much that like to help test out like simulations for your AI or something.
That are open source that you can actually use.
Yes,
so,
even if it's paid.
So STK, Satellite Toolkit, is the standard one. I don't know how much it does swarms though. It's generally a single spacecraft orbit propagation model. There is a tool, I forgot the name of it, but it's out of, I believe, University of Colorado Boulder, where a professor has basically done a simulation model that they put open source for that, for regular swarms and like satellite propagation. That might be one to look at. And then there's an open source module called Exosims, which is not not Swarm particularly, but it's a science-based model for telescope assembly, and it has a version of Starshade flying in formation with the observatory. It doesn't do dynamics propagation, but it's an open source library that you can then put in the dynamics propagation. So that might be a starting point to like start from that. That one is fully open source, and because it's out of Cornell University, you can like practice doing the algorithms for at least two body formations and then seeing the impact on science, because it already has all the science survey stuff in there.
Thank you so much.
I'm Arsh, I'm 12, and my question is, what is the first step for a 12-year-old like me to take in like engineering?
To take an engineering course? I think that really depends on where you're going to school and what opportunities are around where you are. So there's different ways that you can approach engineering. There's one that's the competitive side. That's like what First Robotics does, where you have a competition goal and then you use the engineering design process to build different robots to compete in that. I think it starts in 6th grade, which should fit your timeline, right? There's three levels of that, and I forget the order of it. One is FRC first. I forget what they stand for too. You'd have to look that up. FRC is one level, FTC is the other level, and then there's first Lego League, which I think is the one that's 6th through 8th grade. So that, if you want to get into engineering, that gives a goal and a goal competition then you work in a team to build with it. There's also Science Olympiad, which I'm not sure if it starts from 12, but I know at least is in high school, that has portions of the engineering design process on it. The other aspect I would say is learn how to code through whatever method, whether it's self-taught or from others, because once you learn how to code, you can learn how to CAD and just put those pieces together, then you have the tools in your toolbox to be able to do the engineering design process.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shrisai. I'm 14, 15, and I was wondering, I know JPL also takes part in research projects kind of thing. For example, there's a cold atom lab, and I was wondering what you know about those, and if you have any experience in those, and also what happens to those when the ISS goes down.
So I can answer the other one. So instruments or payload are manifested on the ISS, and they usually have a time horizon that they're manifested. So the Sphere satellites, they went up in 2005, and then they came down in 2015. So they were manifested, they did their operations, and then they were demanifested. Same thing happens with OCO3 or Cold Atom Lab. Once it has its operational manifest, it will come down in either the Dragon or the capsule. They actually will demanifest it, especially if they want to use that slot, because ISS have a specific number of slots that they can put payload to. So each one, when you have a mission, they're given a particular slot, and they will demanifest, as in they would unhook them and bring them back down to the ground after their operational life is done. In terms of science missions at JPL, I mean, almost all of JPL's missions are science missions, right? Perseverance is a science mission, or Clipper, Psyche, Cold Atom Lab is one, OCO3 is another one. So I can't talk specifically about Cold Atom Lab, but I can talk about Perseverance or Psyche or Grail.
I was also wondering, in 2030, that International Space Station will stop operating. So what happens to those research things on the ISS after that?
Well, if they stop operating it, they will deorbit it safely. So it depends on how they deorbit it. They either will demanifest things and it'll come down, or it'll break up upon reentry, depending on what they choose to bring down first. They've also been saying that they're going to stop doing the ISS for a while, and then they keep undoing that decision. So it's still going.
Everybody, this will be the last question because time is running short. So, Bonnie.
My name is Tanishka and I'm 12 years old. What are some of the things you enjoy most while working at NASA?
That's a great question. I liked the excitement of it, of being able to see the images come down for the first time and know that no one had ever seen it or know what it was like when we got those first images down. I like working with the people there. It is by far an amazing group of people, probably one of the smartest collection of people on the planet, being able to do what they were. So there's a curiosity and a passion for space that you rarely find in other places. That makes it super exciting to work. And then third, I like being able to talk about what I do and see how excited other people get and to be a part of that.
Actually, we're going to do one more question.
I heard that Perseverance, it once had like 4 rocks in like the thing, like they collect samples, and when they try to drive it down a crater to get the rocks out, before it even reached the crater, all the rocks fell out. Do you have any idea why?
Sorry, say that again? The Perseverance had taken 4 samples and it drove down a hill and the rocks fell out?
No, like there were rocks stuck in there, and the mission control had to get them out. So before they drove it down the crater, the rocks fell out.
I'm not sure about the rocks falling out. There were cases where they drilled a core sample and then they couldn't see it in the tube that they had picked out, so they didn't know whether it was there or it had gotten stuck, so they had to do some interesting jiggling and working it out to make sure that the rock sample was actually in the tube that they wanted it to be. But when the way Perseverance actually stores samples, it has 2 different sets, and it has an arm that kind of has 2 hinges. So on its hand, it has multiple different instruments that will actually record it. So it'll pick it up and it'll do some science on it, but when it's ready to actually save the sample, it has a bunch of wheels and it puts it inside the belly of the rover in order to save it. Now, Perseverance has collected something like 24 samples now, and it has made a depot on Mars, so it left 10 or 12, I'm not exactly sure, on the floor on Mars. So it actually took them out of its belly and like laid them in a pattern on the floor on Mars, so that in case Perseverance died for some reason before we could go get the important samples that it was keeping with it, there is still a set of samples on the floor on Mars that we've identified where they are, so that another mission could go get those and pick them up easily from the floor of Mars. So maybe that's what you're thinking about, of having to drop the rocks on the floor before it drove away. It did place 10 of those tubes on the floor before it drove to the next site. That site is called Three Forks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think there was one question that I didn't get to. I think you were asking me to give an example of one time where things didn't go my way, and I didn't think that I was going to have a good life. And one of the most poignant memories for me is when I was 8th grade. There's a school where I grew up in Northern Virginia called Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I don't know if anybody has heard of it here. Yeah. It is a super good STEM high school, like consistently ranked number 1 and number 2 for public high schools in the country. My older cousins went there, my sister went there. At this point, I assumed that I would go there because I was just as smart as my sister, and it was a STEM school, and I said I wanted to be a physician, so if I wanted to be something in a science major, I was supposed to go to a science high school. Then came 8th grade where I applied, and I was fully expecting to get in. I did not. I got rejected the first time. 2 of my closest friends got in, which was even more heartbreaking that they got in when I was left at the other school. And my parents were like, okay, that's okay, you can try again next year. because they allow and try in 9th grade. So I tried again next year, and I got rejected also the year after. So this was a huge blow. Like, if I can't even get into a science high school, how am I supposed to get into any respectable science major for college? Because I'm not as good as my sister, I'm not as good as my cousins, like what am I gonna do? How can I ever hope to be a STEM major if I can't even get into high school? The school that I ended up going to was just a local public school. It was probably ranked near the bottom third of that particular school district. Not that it was like a horrible school, but it was definitely not one of the top schools in that area. But things happen for a reason, and working through that failure and getting to the point where I found the motivation, more like the revenge of like, I'll show you, you didn't accept me, but I'm gonna show you that I'm gonna be better regardless of what you think I am, helped fuel the motivation in me to be able to say, no, I don't care what someone else tells me, I'm gonna make it on my own. So I had to find the opportunities myself. My high school didn't have, the world-renowned science teachers that TJ did have. I had to find the internships on my own. The counselor had no idea. I would get weird looks when I said I wanted to do anything with NASA. Found the universities on my own, did all the applications on my own, and having that motivation of being able to do it really formed that, yes, there will be support, but fundamentally, you are responsible for your own success. Nobody else is responsible for your success. I read this on a TED Talk somewhere. The biggest discriminator for success in life is not intelligence, not hard work, it's grit. And grit is prolonged perseverance in pursuit of a goal. So it means you want it, you have enough passion, and you're not giving up from the first obstacle or the second obstacle or the third obstacle. You continue to try to reach for that goal, and that's the biggest indicator of whether you're actually going to achieve success. It's about how much you're willing to work despite what comes up in your way in order to achieve that.
On behalf of the Livermore Temple Youth and Education, I would like to thank Dr. Swati Mohan for the very interesting session. I would also like to thank our MCs today, Advait, Uthukuru, and Krishna Tiwari. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Swati ji, for a great, for kids, definitely we need a motivational speaker. Thank you for coming here. And we would like to invite from City, Ben, can you please come over on the stage, please? So we would like to honor Swati ji from the Livermore City.
Okay, I'm your local politician. Just to give you an idea, you live in the 2nd district right here, and I'm your city councilman. And just to give you, find out looks like brown minorities. I was the first minority to be elected in Livermore in 144 years. So thank you. Namaste. I'm here representing the city of Livermore, and we'd like to award her a certificate of recognition. And this Dr. Swati. Oh, one more thing. I was a teacher. I taught kindergarten. I majored in political science, and with that I went to kindergarten. And I understand that one of your favorite things is that you like to do what? Systems and attitude systems control. I was wondering how you can translate to a teacher how to do systems and control with the kids.
Yeah. It's the eyes and ears in a spacecraft.
Well, this is kind of like a little joke. How do I control the attitudes of my kids in junior high? So this is your work. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Ben and Liverpool City Council for being at the forefront in support of great activities for the Liverpool Hindu Temple. Yeah, here is what this says. City of Livermore Mayor Certificate of Recognition presented to Dr. Swati Mohan for outstanding contributions to space exploration and scientific advancement and for inspiring future generations. The City of Livermore proudly celebrates your influence on students and the community. Thank you.
On behalf of HCCC, thank you for taking time in your busy schedule and coming here and inspiring our young kids.